The gun pressed cold against Rain's temple, but her eyes never left Jaewon's face. His expression, raw, devastated, betrayed, cut deeper than any bullet could. Around them, his men stood frozen, weapons drawn, waiting for the order that would end her life. "You used me," he said, his voice breaking on the last word. The dragon had been brought to his knees by the woman he'd sworn to protect. Everything was a lie. Rain's hand trembled as she reached toward him, knowing he'd flinch away. "Not everything," she whispered. "Jaewon, please listen. Listen!" His roar echoed through the warehouse. "You married me to destroy me. You painted me, made love to me, let me fall." He stopped, jaw clenching. "Who are you really, Rain Montgomery?" The man holding the gun to her head cocked the hammer. This was it. The moment her carefully constructed plan collapsed. The moment she'd have to choose between the revenge she'd spent 2 years plotting and the man she'd never meant to love. "I'm the sister," she said quietly, "of the boy your organization killed." The rejection email came at 2:47 a.m., glowing blue in the darkness of Rain Montgomery's cramped Brooklyn studio. "Thank you for your submission to the Tribeca Gallery Spring Collection. Unfortunately, your work does not align with our current artistic vision." Rain stared at the screen until the words blurred. That was the 5th gallery this month. The rent was due in 3 days. Her grandmother's medication cost $400 she didn't have, and her brother Marcus's grave still had the temporary marker because she couldn't afford the headstone she'd promised him. 2 years. 2 years since the police had found Marcus in an alley in Koreatown, another gang-related casualty in a case that went nowhere. 23 years old with a bullet in his chest and Rain's name on his lips. She pushed away from her laptop and moved to the canvas dominating her studio, a 6-foot portrait of a dragon consuming its own tail. She'd been working on it for months, pouring her rage and grief into every brushstroke. The dragon's scales gleamed with metallic paint she'd scraped together money to buy. Its eyes held all the cold calculation of the men who'd killed her brother, the Ryu Syndicate. She'd spent 2 years learning everything about them. 2 years waitressing, painting, researching. 2 years planning. Her phone buzzed. Her grandmother's night nurse. "She's asking for you. Hurry." Rain grabbed her jacket and ran. St. Mary's Hospital smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Her grandmother lay small in the bed, oxygen tube in her nose, the heart monitor beeping its steady rhythm. At 78, Nadine Montgomery had survived poverty, racism, and the loss of her daughter. But losing Marcus had broken something fundamental. "Baby girl," Nadine whispered, her voice paper-thin. "You been painting?" "Always, Grandma." Rain took her hand, careful of the IV. "Your brother loved watching you paint, remember? He'd sit for hours just watching those brushes move." Nadine's eyes, still sharp despite everything, fixed on Rain's face. "You carrying something heavy, child." "I can see it." Rain's throat tightened. "I'm fine." "Don't lie to your dying grandmother." Nadine squeezed her hand with surprising strength. "Whatever you're planning, whatever darkness you're walking toward, remember who you are. Remember, Marcus wouldn't want you to lose yourself." "I already lost myself when I lost him," Rain whispered. She stayed until dawn, then stumbled back to Brooklyn as the city woke around her. Her studio felt smaller than ever, crowded with finished and half-finished canvases. Her talent was undeniable. Every rejection email said as much before crushing her anyway. Technically brilliant but emotionally inaccessible, powerful but uncommercial, raw but unmarketable. They meant too black, too angry, too real. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Ms. Montgomery?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional. "My name is Minseo Park. I represent a private collector interested in commissioning a portrait. Your dragon piece was mentioned by a contact at the Williamsburg Art Walk. My client is prepared to offer $50,000. Rain's knees nearly buckled. "I'm sorry, did you say 50,000? Half up front, half on completion. My client wishes to meet today if you're available. His schedule is quite demanding." This was it. The opening she'd been waiting for. Rain had made sure her dragon painting caught the right eyes, had planted seeds in conversations with the right people. The Ryu Syndicate had tentacles throughout the art world, money laundering mostly, buying and selling through galleries and private sales. "I'm available," Rain said, her heart hammering. "Where?" "The Azure Building, penthouse. 2 p.m. The line went dead. Rain stood in her studio, surrounded by her art, her poverty, her rage. She thought of Marcus's laugh, her grandmother's failing heart, the headstone she couldn't afford. She thought of the gun she knew she'd find in Jaewon's world if she looked hard enough, the gun that had killed her brother. She pulled out her nicest dress, a simple black sheath she'd thrifted for gallery openings. She had 6 hours to prepare, 6 hours to transform from Rain Montgomery, struggling artist, into Rain Montgomery, instrument of revenge. By noon, she'd researched everything she could find on Ryu Jae-won, 35 years old. Inherited his father's empire at 28 when the old man had a sudden heart attack. Legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, art galleries, and underneath, the network everyone knew about but no one could prove. Protection rackets, gambling, and worse. Much worse. The Azure building pierced the Manhattan sky like a glass dagger. Rain's reflection in the lobby mirrors showed a woman who looked far more confident than she felt. The elevator rose 52 floors in silence. The penthouse doors opened directly into a space that made her studio look like a closet. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a conquered kingdom. The art on the walls, originals, everyone, represented more money than Rain had seen in her life. And standing by the windows backlit by afternoon sun was Ryu Jae-won. He turned, and Rain's carefully prepared speech died in her throat. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful. Sharp lines and controlled power. His black hair was styled perfectly. His charcoal suit custom-fitted to broad shoulders. But it was his eyes that caught her. Dark, intelligent, and utterly cold as they assessed her. Ms. Montgomery. His voice carried the faintest accent, cultured and controlled. Thank you for coming. Mr. Ryu? She forced herself to meet his gaze. Your assistant mentioned a commission. I saw your dragon. He moved toward her with predatory grace. It's remarkable, angry, honest. Everything the commercial galleries are too afraid to show. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she caught the scent of expensive cologne. I want you to paint me. Rain blinked. I don't usually do commissioned portraits of living subjects. I'm aware. Your work focuses on mythology, symbolism, cultural commentary. His eyes never left her face. But I'm not interested in flattery. I want truth. Whatever you see when you look at me, that's what I want captured. And if what I see isn't pretty. For the first time, something like amusement flickered across his face. Ms. Montgomery, do I look like a man who needs pretty lies? No. He looked like a man who commanded an empire built on blood, who made decisions that destroyed lives without losing sleep, who had probably ordered her brother's death with the same calm expression he wore now. 50,000, Rain said, half up front, as your assistant mentioned. I'll need 4 weeks. Access to you for reference. Photos, sketches, observation. Done. He pulled out his phone and typed something. Hers buzzed. 25,000 deposited. I've transferred the remaining funds to be released upon completion to your satisfaction. Rain stared at her phone. The money was real. The money that would pay her rent, her grandmother's medication, buy time to get close to this man and find the proof she needed. When do we start? She asked. Now. He gestured to a seat by the windows. I have 30 minutes before my next meeting. Use them. Rain pulled out her sketchbook with hands that only trembled slightly. As she began to draw, capturing the sharp angles of his face and the cold calculation in his eyes, one thought repeated in her mind. I'm going to destroy you, Ryu Jae-won. For Marcus. For every life you've ruined. I'm going to paint you, learn you, and then I'm going to watch your world burn. She just had to make sure she didn't burn with it. 3 weeks of sketching Ryu Jae-won taught Rain several disturbing things. First, he was punctual to an inhuman degree. Every session began exactly when scheduled, ended exactly when promised. Time, to him, was currency, and he spent it with calculated precision. Second, he noticed everything. The way her hand cramped after an hour of drawing. The shadows under her eyes when she came straight from the hospital. The exact moment her professional mask slipped and real anger bled into her brushstrokes. Third, he was far more dangerous than she'd imagined. You're troubled today, he observed during their 8th session. He sat in his usual chair, perfectly still in a way that should have looked relaxed, but instead reminded Rain of a coiled snake. Your lines are aggressive. Bad night, Rain said shortly, shading the planes of his face. On her canvas he was emerging from darkness, half-formed, more monster than man, exactly as she saw him. Your grandmother? Her hand stilled. She'd never mentioned her grandmother. Jae-won's expression didn't change. You leave our sessions and go directly to St. Mary's Hospital. You're there between 2 and 4 hours. Tuesdays and Thursdays, a night nurse texts you around 3 a.m. You always respond. Rain's blood went cold. You're having me followed? I'm careful about who I allow into my life, Ms. Montgomery. He leaned forward slightly. Your grandmother has stage 4 heart failure. You're behind on her medication costs. Your rent is overdue. You have $17 in your checking account. His eyes, those cold, dark eyes, held hers. You're drowning. She should have expected this. Should have known a man like him wouldn't commission a portrait without doing thorough research. But having her poverty laid bare, her desperation exposed, it made her feel naked in a way that had nothing to do with clothing. If you're trying to renegotiate the price, I'm offering to help. Rain's laugh was bitter. Why would you do that? Because you're talented. Because I want the portrait finished without you collapsing from exhaustion or grief. He stood, moving to the window. Because I understand what it's like to watch someone you love slip away while you're powerless to stop it. The words hung between them, surprising in their humanity. Rain studied his reflection in the glass, the rigid set of his shoulders, the slight tension in his jaw. For just a moment he looked less like a crime lord, and more like a man carrying his own weight of grief. She should have taken the opening, pressed for more, used this crack in his armor. Instead, she heard herself say, "My brother died 2 years ago. Grandma never recovered." Jaewon turned. "How did he die?" "Gang violence. Wrong place, wrong time," the police said. Each word tasted like ash. They never found who did it. Something flickered across his face, too fast to read. "I'm sorry." "Are you?" The question came out sharper than intended. "Do men like you actually feel sorry, or is that just something you say?" Instead of anger, Jaewon smiled, a real smile that transformed his face completely. "You have no idea what kind of man I am, Ms. Montgomery." "Don't I?" Rain stood, crossing to where he stood. "Rich, powerful, used to getting what you want. You buy art and people with equal ease. You've never had to choose between food and medicine, never watched someone die because you couldn't afford to save them." "You're right," he said quietly. "I haven't. But I've watched people die for other reasons. I've made choices that haunt me. I've traded pieces of my soul for power I didn't even want." He held her gaze, and for the first time, she saw past the ice to something raw underneath. "We're all drowning in something, Rain. Mine just happens to be invisible." The use of her first name sent a shiver through her. The intimacy of it felt dangerous, like stepping over a line neither of them had agreed to cross. "I should go," she said. "I have enough references for now. Let me help with your grandmother's care." "No, pride won't keep her alive." "And taking money from you will?" Rain grabbed her bag. "I'm painting your portrait, Mr. Ryu. That's all. Don't confuse a business arrangement for something more." She was at the elevator when his voice stopped her. "You're afraid." Rain's hand froze on the button. "Excuse me?" "You're afraid that if you let me help, if you see me as human, you won't be able to hate me anymore." He'd moved silently behind her. "And you need that hate. It's keeping you upright." He was too close. She could feel the heat of him, smell the cedar of his cologne. When she turned, he was right there, those dark eyes seeing far too much. "You don't know anything about me," she whispered. "I know you're the most talented artist I've ever met. I know you're loyal and fierce and barely holding yourself together. I know you put everyone else first and yourself last." His hand came up, not touching her, just hovering near her face. "And I know that underneath all that anger is someone terrified she's going to lose everything she loves." Rain's eyes burned. "Don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth?" His voice dropped lower. "Or don't look at you like I'm starting to see you as more than just my portrait artist." The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Rain stepped inside, her heart hammering against her ribs. "The painting will be ready in 2 weeks," she said, her voice unsteady. Jaewon nodded slowly. "I'll expect nothing less." As the doors closed, she saw him standing there, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Her reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls showed a woman coming apart at the seams. She'd spent 3 weeks studying Ryu Jaewon, learning his patterns, mapping his empire. She'd discovered he owned 12 legitimate businesses, and probably twice that many illegitimate ones. She'd learned he was feared by his enemies and respected by his men. She'd found hints of the violence lurking under his civilized surface, but she hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared for the possibility that he might be more than the monster she needed him to be, that his loneliness might mirror hers, that when he looked at her, she might feel something other than hate. Her phone buzzed. The hospital. Her grandmother had taken a turn. Rain ran. By the time she burst into her grandmother's room, the crisis had passed. Nadine lay sleeping, the monitors showing a heart still fighting despite everything. Rain collapsed into the chair beside the bed and let the tears come. She cried for Marcus, for her grandmother, for the girl she'd been before violence had stolen her brother and turned her into someone capable of plotting revenge. She cried for the loneliness that ate at her every day, and the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, $50,000 would be enough to change something. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "I had my doctor call St. Mary's. Your grandmother's care is covered. Don't argue. Just let someone help for once." J.W. Rains stared at the message, fury and gratitude warring in her chest. He'd overstepped, massively, taken control of something deeply personal without permission, and he'd also just saved her grandmother's life. She typed and deleted 5 different responses before settling on, "Thank you, I'll pay you back." His reply came instantly, "Paint me honestly. That's payment enough." Rain looked at her sleeping grandmother, then at her phone, then at her own reflection in the darkened window. She'd come into J1's orbit planning to use him, destroy him, make him pay for what his organization had taken from her. But he'd just given her the one thing she couldn't afford to take, hope. And that, she realized with growing dread, made everything infinitely more complicated. The portrait was nearly finished when everything changed. Rain had spent 2 weeks painting obsessively, barely sleeping, channeling everything she'd learned about J1 into the canvas. The man emerging from her brushstrokes was complex in ways that troubled her, equal parts darkness and reluctant humanity, a dragon with 2 aware eyes. She'd also spent those 2 weeks researching, digging deeper into the Ryu syndicate. Her grandmother's stable condition gave her the freedom to investigate properly. She'd made contacts in Koreatown, asked careful questions, followed threads, and she'd found the connection. A shipping container, a warehouse near the docks, the exact location where Marcus had died. The warehouse was owned by one of J1's subsidiary companies. On the night Marcus was killed, there had been a business transaction involving a rival gang. Marcus had been a witness, a complication. And complications in J1's world got eliminated. Rain had the proof now. Photos of the warehouse records. Testimony from someone who'd been there. All of it pointed to one inescapable truth. Ryu J1's organization had killed her brother. She stood in front of the finished portrait, paint-stained and exhausted. The dragon stared back at her with J1's eyes, intelligent, guarded, and somehow sad. She'd painted him exactly as he'd requested, truthfully, and the truth was more complicated than she'd wanted it to be. Her phone rang. J1. "It's finished," she said before he could speak. "I'm sending a car." 20 minutes later, she stood in his penthouse again, the canvas propped against the windows. J1 circled it slowly, his face unreadable. "It's extraordinary," he finally said. "I've never seen myself so clearly. Is that good or bad?" He turned to her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "Both. You see me as dangerous, but you also see the parts I try to hide, the loneliness, the regret." He moved closer. "How did you know?" "I pay attention," Rain said, her heart racing. "It's what artists do." "No." He was right in front of her now. "You see me because you recognize it, because you're carrying the same things I am." His hand came up to cup her face, a touch so gentle it made her chest ache. She should pull away, should remember why she was here, what he'd taken from her. But when his thumb brushed her cheekbone, all she could think was how long it had been since anyone had touched her with tenderness. "Rain," he whispered, her name like a prayer. "Tell me to stop." She couldn't. God help her. She couldn't. When his lips met hers, it wasn't the brutal kiss she'd expected from a crime lord. It was searching, almost hesitant, asking permission with every gentle pressure. Rain's hands came up to grip his shirt, torn between pulling him closer and pushing him away. He tasted like coffee and something darker, danger and desire mixed together. When he deepened the kiss, she responded without thinking, rising onto her toes to get closer. His arms wrapped around her, solid and warm, and for just a moment she let herself forget everything except how right this felt. Then reality crashed back. She broke away, stumbling backward. "I can't. We can't." J1's breathing was unsteady, his carefully controlled mask shattered. "Why?" "Because this is business, because you killed my brother. Because we're from different worlds. Worlds can collide," he said softly. "Rain, from the moment you walked into my life, something shifted. You challenged me. See past the power to the person underneath. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" She wanted to scream, wanted to throw the evidence in his face, watch his expression change from tender to guilty. But she couldn't. Not yet. She needed more proof, ironclad evidence that would stand up in court. She needed to be sure before she destroyed him, and possibly herself. "I need to go," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't." He reached for her. Please, stay, talk to me. About what? How a mafia boss and a broke artist could possibly work. How you live in this tower made of blood money while I can barely afford rent. The words poured out, razor sharp. You said you wanted truth? Here's the truth. Whatever this is, it can't happen. Our worlds don't just collide. They annihilate each other. Something hardened in his expression. You think I don't know what I am? You think I'm not aware of every choice I've made, every compromise, every sin? He moved toward her like a predator. I've spent 15 years building an empire on foundations I hate. I've done things that keep me awake at night. And then you walked into my life with your honesty and your talent and your fucking beautiful anger. And for the first time in years, I felt human again. Rain's back hit the window. J1, I'm not asking you to absolve me. I'm not asking you to ignore what I am. His hands came up to brace on either side of her, caging her in. I'm asking you to see that I'm trying. That meeting you made me want to be better. The worst part was that she believed him, could see the sincerity in his eyes, feel it in the tremor in his voice, and it made everything so much worse. You can't be better, she whispered. Not in this life, not running an organization built on violence. Then help me leave it. The words hung between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. What? J1's laugh was bitter. You think I want this? That I chose to inherit an empire of blood? My father gave me no choice. It was take over or watch everything he built get torn apart by rivals, putting every family under our protection at risk. His forehead dropped to touch hers. But I'm tired, Rain. So tired of being the dragon everyone fears. You make me remember what it's like to be just a man. Rain closed her eyes against the tears threatening to fall. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be vulnerable, to want redemption, to look at her like she was salvation, instead of judgment. I have to go, she said again. This time, he let her pull away. But as she reached the elevator, his voice stopped her. I'm falling in love with you. Rain's hand froze on the button. Don't say that. Why? Because it's inconvenient? Because it complicates whatever plan you have for walking away? He moved to stand in her line of sight. I know this is fast. I know it's insane. But I also know I've never felt this way about anyone. You've gotten under my skin, into my head, and God help me, into my heart. You don't even know me, Rain choked out. Don't I? I know you work 3 jobs to support your grandmother. I know you haven't bought yourself new clothes in over a year. I know you eat 1 meal a day so you can afford art supplies. I know you visit your brother's grave every Sunday and cry so hard you make yourself sick. His voice gentled. I know because I pay attention too, Rain. Because from the moment I saw your work, I wanted to understand the woman who creates such beautiful, angry truth. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. I need time, Rain said, not trusting herself to say more. Take all you need. But Rain? She looked back at him. I'm not giving up on this, on us. Whatever you're afraid of, whatever walls you've built, I'm patient. And I'm not going anywhere. The doors closed between them, and Rain sagged against the elevator wall. Her phone felt heavy in her pocket, loaded with the evidence that would destroy him. Photos of the warehouse, witness testimony, the proof that his organization had killed Marcus, and now she had a choice she'd never anticipated making. Revenge or redemption. Justice for her brother, or a future with the man responsible for his death. Her phone buzzed. A text from her contact in Koreatown. Found the weapon. Gun that killed your brother. Ryo's fingerprints all over the case. He ordered it personally. Rain stared at the message until her vision blurred. There it was, the final piece of evidence. J1 hadn't just run the organization. He'd pulled the trigger himself, metaphorically, if not literally. The man who'd just confessed his love was her brother's killer. The elevator reached the lobby. Rain walked out into the Manhattan evening with her world crumbling around her. She had everything she needed to destroy Ryu Jae-won. She just didn't know if she could survive pulling the trigger. Rain didn't answer Jae-won's calls for 3 days. She spent those 72 hours locked in her studio, staring at the evidence spread across her floor. The warehouse records, the witness testimony, the information about the gun, all of it pointing to one conclusion. Ryu Jae-won had ordered Marcus's death, but something didn't fit. The more she studied the timeline, the more inconsistencies emerged. The warehouse incident happened on December 18th, 2 years ago, but according to financial records she'd obtained, Jae-won had been in South Korea that entire week for his father's funeral. He couldn't have ordered the hit. He'd been halfway around the world, which meant someone else in his organization had acted independently, or someone wanted her to believe Jae-won was responsible. Her phone rang again. This time she answered. Where are you? Jae-won's voice was tight, with barely controlled worry. I've been calling for days. I needed to think. About us? About murder? About revenge? About whether the man she was falling for had killed her brother or been framed for it? Yes. Rain, whatever you're afraid of, we can face it together. Just talk to me. I need to see you tonight. I'll send the car— No, somewhere public, neutral ground. If she was going to confront him with the evidence, it needed to be somewhere he couldn't simply make her disappear. The Brooklyn Bridge, 10 p.m. Silence. Then, I'll be there. The bridge was nearly empty at that hour, the city lights reflecting off the East River below. Rain arrived first, clutching a folder with copies of everything she'd found. Her hands shook. J1 appeared from the Manhattan side, dressed simply in dark jeans and a leather jacket. No bodyguards visible, though she suspected they were nearby. His expression when he saw her was pure relief. "You came," he said, moving toward her. Rain held up a hand, stopping him. "Don't. Not yet." He froze, reading something in her face. "What's wrong? I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." She pulled out the first document, the warehouse records. "Do you own this building?" J1 glanced at it. "Yes, it's one of our storage facilities. Why?" 2 years ago, December 18th, was there an incident there?" His brow furrowed. "I'd have to check. December 2 years ago was when my father died. I was in Seoul for 2 weeks dealing with the funeral and succession." "Why?" Rain's chest tightened. "You weren't in New York?" "No. I can show you passport records, flight manifests, hotel receipts, whatever you need." He moved closer, concern replacing confusion. "Rain, what is this about?" She pulled out the police report. Marcus's death certificate, the witness testimony placing the killing at that warehouse. J1's face went pale as he read. "Your brother," he whispered. "He was killed at my warehouse. By your organization. On your orders, according to my source." "No." His eyes snapped up to hers, fierce and certain. "Absolutely not. I would never— Rain, I swear to you I knew nothing about this. How can I believe you? You run this empire, you give the orders. And when I'm not there, others act in my absence." His jaw clenched. "While I was in Seoul, there was a power struggle. My second-in-command thought he could take control. He started making moves without my approval, including—" He looked at the report again, and something like horror crossed his face. "Including clearing out witnesses to an arms deal he had no authority to make." "You're saying someone in your organization went rogue?" "I'm saying that when I returned, I found out about several unauthorized operations. I dealt with them. Harshly." His voice went cold. "But I never knew about this. About your brother. If I had— What? What would you have done?" "I would have delivered the man responsible to you personally." He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I would have burned my entire operation to the ground to give you justice. Rain, you have to believe me. I would never have hurt someone you loved." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted it so badly it physically hurt. But how could she? How could she trust the word of a criminal? A man who admitted to running an empire built on violence. "Show me," she said. "Show me proof you weren't involved." "Done. My office. Now. I'll give you access to everything, every record, every communication, every piece of evidence you need." His hands slid down to grip hers. "I'll help you find who did this, and then I'll help you decide what to do with them." Rain pulled back. "Why would you do that? If it's someone in your organization, helping me would be betraying them. They betrayed me first by acting without authorization, by killing an innocent man, by—" His voice broke. "By hurting you before I ever knew you existed." A car pulled up. Black sedan, tinted windows. Not the luxury vehicle she'd expected, but something more discreet. J1 opened the back door, waiting. This was the moment. Get in the car and potentially walk into a trap, or walk away and never know the truth. Rain thought of Marcus, of her grandmother, of the 2 years she'd spent planning revenge against a man who might be innocent, or might be a brilliant liar. She got in the car. J1's office wasn't in the penthouse. It was in a nondescript building in Koreatown, accessible through a restaurant that fronted the operation. The room itself was all business. Computers, filing cabinets, a massive desk covered in papers. "December 18th, 2 years ago, J1 said, pulling up records on his computer. "My father's funeral was December 15th. I was in Seoul from the 12th through the 27th. He showed her passport scans, then pulled up another file. "This is the internal investigation I ordered when I got back. 3 unauthorized operations conducted in my absence by my second-in-command, Park Jin-ho." Rain scanned the documents. The warehouse incident was mentioned. Civilian casualty during witness elimination. but with no details about the victim. "Where is Park Jin-ho now?" she asked. "Dead. I executed him myself when I discovered his treachery." Jae-won's voice was flat, matter-of-fact. He was planning a coup. The unauthorized operations were meant to show the other families that he was strong enough to lead. "Your brother—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "Your brother was collateral damage in Park's ambition." Rain felt like she was drowning. "You killed him. The man who murdered Marcus." "Yes. Though I didn't know at the time that one of his victims meant something to you. If I had—" He turned to face her fully. "If I had known, I would have made his death slower, more painful. I would have made him suffer for every tear you've shed." The violence in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like justice, cold and absolute. "I spent 2 years planning to destroy you," Rain said quietly. "I came into your life with the intention of using you, learning your secrets, and then watching you burn for what I thought you'd done." Jae-won went very still. "I know." Her head snapped up. "What?" "I figured it out after the second session. The way you looked at me. It wasn't just artistic assessment. It was calculation, study, like you were mapping an enemy." He moved closer. "I had my people dig deeper into your background. Found your brother's case. Found you asking questions in Koreatown about my organization. It wasn't hard to put together." Rain's blood went cold. "And you let me get close anyway?" "Because I understood." His hand came up to her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I understood the need for revenge. The way it consumes you becomes the only thing keeping you alive. I wanted to give you the chance to find the truth, even if that truth destroyed me." "Why?" "Because from the moment I met you I knew you were different, important, and I'd rather die honest with you than live as your monster." His eyes, those dark, devastating eyes, held hers. "I love you, Rain Montgomery. Even knowing you came to destroy me, even knowing you might still walk away, I love you." The words broke something inside her. All the walls she'd built, all the hate she'd cultivated, all the careful planning, it crumbled under the weight of his confession. "I hate you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I hate that you're not the monster I needed you to be. I hate that you're making me choose between revenge and what? And this. Whatever this is between us." She grabbed his shirt, torn between pulling him close and pushing him away. "You run a criminal empire. You've killed people. You've done terrible things." "Yes." He didn't deny it, didn't make excuses. "And I'll do more terrible things to keep you safe. To keep this us protected. That's who I am, Rain. I can't change my past, but I can choose my future." His forehead pressed against hers. "Choose me. Choose us. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for the pain my organization caused you. And if I can't, if every time I look at you I see Marcus's death, then I'll live with that pain, because having you in my life, even if you can never fully forgive me, is better than losing you completely." Rain closed her eyes, feeling his breath on her face, his hands steady on her waist. Every logical part of her brain screamed to walk away, to use the evidence she had, take it to the police, and let justice, official justice, take its course. But her heart, that traitorous organ, wanted something else entirely. A phone rang, shattering the moment. Jae-won pulled back, checking the screen. His expression darkened. "What is it?" "My men at St. Mary's. Someone just tried to access your grandmother's room. Someone looking for you." He was already moving, grabbing keys, pulling out a gun. "It's the rival organization. The one Park was working with before I killed him. They must have found out about you, about us." Terror shot through Rain. "My grandmother is safe. My people got there first. But they know about her now. They know you matter to me." He grabbed her hand. "We need to move. Now." They ran. The safe house was a brownstone in Queens, unremarkable and anonymous. Jae-won's men secured the perimeter while he hustled Rain inside, his hand never leaving the small of her back. "Your grandmother is being transferred to a private facility under my protection," he said, phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated. "Round-the-clock security. The rival family won't get near her." Rain sank onto the couch, shaking. Everything had happened so fast. The revelations about Marcus's death, Jae-won's confession, and now her grandmother in danger because she'd gotten involved with a crime lord. "This is my fault," she whispered. Jae-won ended his call and knelt in front of her. "No, this is on me. My world, my enemies. I should have anticipated they'd use you against me once they realized what you meant to me." "What I mean to you?" She laughed bitterly. "I came into your life planning to destroy you. I used you, lied to you, and I fell in love with you anyway." His hands gripped hers. "Rain, I don't care why you came. I care that you're here now, that despite everything, you haven't walked away. Maybe I should have, but you didn't. He pulled her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles with devastating gentleness. You stayed, even when you found out the truth, even when you learned my organization killed your brother. You stayed long enough to find out I wasn't the monster you thought I was. You're still a criminal. Yes, but I'm your criminal now. The possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver through her. And I will burn this entire city to keep you safe. Before Rain could respond, his phone rang again. This time his expression went from concerned to furious. What do you mean they have the transfer route? He stood, pacing. How did they... He stopped, eyes closing. We have a leak. Someone on my security team. His jaw clenched. Find them. Now. He hung up and looked at Rain. They know where your grandmother is being moved. They're planning an ambush. Then stop the transfer. Keep her at the hospital. The hospital isn't secure. If they want to get to her there, they will. He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of real fear she'd seen from him. I need to handle this personally, but that means leaving you here alone with my men, and I don't... He stopped. I don't trust anyone right now. Rain stood. Then take me with you. Absolutely not. If something happens to my grandmother because I wasn't there, I'll never forgive either of us. She grabbed his arm. Jaewon, she's all I have left. I'm not sitting here safe while she's in danger. The war on his face was visible. Finally, he nodded. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. They moved fast, back into the car. 2 additional vehicles flanking them for protection. Jaewon made calls in rapid Korean, his voice sharp with command. His hand found Rain's in the back seat, squeezing once before he had to let go to reload his gun. The reality of what she'd gotten involved in hit home. This wasn't a romance novel. This was real danger, real violence, real possibility of death. And she'd walked into it willingly, because she'd been so focused on revenge that she hadn't considered the full cost. The private medical facility was in Connecticut, a converted mansion with state-of-the-art equipment and security. They arrived as the ambulance carrying her grandmother pulled up. 2 minutes, Jaewon said. We get her inside and then... Gunfire shattered the quiet evening. Everything happened at once. Jaewon pushed Rain down, covering her body with his. His men returned fire. The ambulance doors burst open, medics scrambling for cover, and through it all Rain could see her grandmother's stretcher, exposed and vulnerable. Stay here, Jaewon commanded, and then he was gone, moving with lethal precision toward the ambulance. He took down 2 attackers with clinical efficiency, reaching her grandmother's side and physically lifting her stretcher, carrying it toward the building's entrance. Rain watched, heart in her throat, as the man she loved, and yes, she loved him despite everything, risked his life for the grandmother of the woman who'd planned to destroy him. More gunfire. A scream. One of Jaewon's men went down. And then she saw it. An attacker circling around, weapon aimed at Jaewon's back while he was focused on getting her grandmother to safety. Rain didn't think. She ran. She hit Jaewon from the side, knocking him aside just as the shot fired. The bullet grazed her shoulder, burning like liquid fire. They went down in a tangle of limbs, her grandmother's stretcher sliding sideways, but caught by one of Jaewon's men. Jaewon's roar of rage was inhuman. He rose like a demon, gun firing with deadly accuracy. The attacker dropped. 2 more emerged and they fell just as quickly. When the smoke cleared, silence descended. Rain. Jaewon dropped beside her, hands frantically checking her wound. You stupid, brave, impossible woman. What were you thinking? I was thinking, she gasped through the pain, that I wasn't letting anyone shoot the man I love. He froze, eyes snapping to hers. What did you say? You heard me. Tears mixed with shock and adrenaline. I love you, you infuriating criminal. I love you even though I shouldn't, even though it's insane and complicated and probably going to get me killed. I love you. Jaewon's kiss was desperate, fierce, tasting of smoke and fear and relief. Don't ever do that again, he said against her lips. Don't ever risk yourself for me. Too late. We're in this together now. She touched his face, for better or worse. Apparently worse involves gunfights and my grandmother being used as bait, but she's safe. He helped her stand, supporting her weight. My men have her inside. The facility is secure, and you... His voice gentled. You're going to be fine. It's just a graze. Just a graze, she repeated, slightly hysterical. I've been shot. Welcome to my world. But his hands were shaking as he helped her inside, and she realized he'd been just as terrified as she was. Inside, her grandmother was being settled into a private room, medics attending to her, while she grumbled about all the fuss. When she saw Rain, bloody and pale, her expression shifted to fierce grandmother mode. "What did you do to my baby?" she demanded, looking at Jaewon. "I fell in love with her," Jaewon said simply. "And she returned the favor by saving my life." Nadine's sharp eyes moved between them, reading everything in their faces. Finally, she sighed. "Marcus would have liked you," she said to Jaewon. "He always said Rain needed someone strong enough to handle her fire." Rain's eyes filled with tears. "Grandma, hush now, I'm old, not stupid. I can see love when it's standing in front of me." She reached out, taking both their hands and joining them. "Whatever brought you two together, whatever darkness you've walked through, you came out the other side together. That's what matters." Later, after Rain's shoulder was bandaged and her grandmother was sleeping peacefully under guard, Jaewon took her to a private office. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. "I need to tell you something," she said, "about why I really came into your life. I know why, and I understand." He pulled her gently into his arms, careful of her injury. "Rain, I'm not asking you to forget your brother. I'm not asking you to forgive my organization. I'm asking you to let me help you find peace." "How?" "Park Jin-ho is dead. The man who actually pulled the trigger is beyond justice. But the family he was working with, the ones who just attacked us, they're not." His eyes were hard, determined. "They ordered the hit. They wanted control of my territories badly enough to kill innocent people, and now they've threatened you and your grandmother." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm going to destroy them, completely, legally, if possible. If not," he shrugged, "then not. But either way, they'll pay for what they did to Marcus. And to you." Rain should have been horrified, should have stopped him, insisted on legal justice, walked away from the violence. Instead, she heard herself say, "I want to help." Jaewon's expression shifted to surprise. "Rain, Marcus was my brother. If we're doing this, if we're getting justice, I need to be part of it." She grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. "I need closure. I need to look the people who ordered his death in the eye and know they're paying for what they did. It's dangerous. These people are ruthless. So are you. So am I, apparently." She managed a shaky laugh. "Besides, I think I already proved I can handle danger. I got shot for you, remember? As if I could forget." His forehead pressed against hers. "You terrified me tonight. When I saw you bleeding, I nearly—" His voice cracked. "I love you too much to risk you like that again. Then we do this smart. Together. Use my art world connections to get close to them. I know they launder money through galleries. We gather evidence, build a case, and then we make sure they never hurt anyone again." Jaewon studied her face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Partners?" "Partners," Rain agreed. He sealed it with a kiss that promised violence, justice, and love all tangled together, exactly like their relationship. When they broke apart, he pulled something from his pocket. "I was going to wait," he said, opening a small box to reveal a ring, black diamond set in platinum, as dark and beautiful as her art. "But after tonight, I realized life's too short for waiting. Rain Montgomery, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making up for the pain my world caused you? Will you help me be better than I am?" Rain looked at the ring, at the man offering it, at the future spreading out before them, complicated, dangerous, and absolutely real. "Yes," she whispered, "but on one condition. Anything." She smiled through her tears. "You let me paint our wedding portrait. Something beautiful and true. Something that shows exactly who we are. Darkness and light, violence and love, revenge and redemption all mixed together." Jaewon slid the ring onto her finger. "Only if you sign it. I want the world to know that Rain Montgomery chose the dragon, and the dragon chose her right back." Outside, dawn was breaking over the city. Inside, two people who'd found each other through tragedy and deception held each other close, planning justice and a future in equal measure. The war wasn't over. The rival family still needed to be dealt with. Evidence needed to be gathered. Legal and illegal strategies needed to be coordinated. But for now, in this moment, Rain Montgomery, artist, survivor, woman in love, let herself believe in happy endings, even the complicated kind, especially the complicated kind, because the best love stories, she'd learned, aren't the simple ones. They're the ones where two people see each other's darkness and choose to walk forward anyway, where revenge transforms into justice, and justice transforms into hope. And where a poor black artist and a Korean mafia boss prove that love doesn't care about worlds colliding, it just insists they collide together. Years later, Rain stood in her gallery. Not a borrowed space or a coffee shop corner, but her own gallery in Soho with her name in elegant letters across the front. The opening night crowd admired her latest collection, a series exploring transformation, cultural fusion, and the complicated nature of justice. Critics called it her most mature work yet. Collectors bid aggressively for pieces that wouldn't be for sale until the show closed. But Rain's attention was on the portrait dominating the back wall. She and Jae-won on their wedding day, painted in her signature style. Him in a sharp black suit, her in a white dress with African print accents, standing in front of both their worlds. Behind him, the sleek towers of Manhattan. Behind her, the vibrant streets of Brooklyn. And between them, joined hands, a bridge connecting two universes that shouldn't fit, but somehow did. "Still your favorite?" Jae-won's voice came from behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. "Always." She leaned back against him. "It reminds me of how far we've come." The rival family had fallen 3 years ago, brought down by a combination of Rain's undercover work in the art world and Jae-won's ruthless legal maneuvering. Every member involved in Marcus's death was serving life sentences. Justice in the end had been served cold and thoroughly. Jae-won had kept his promise too. He'd gradually transitioned out of the criminal world, using his empire's resources to go legitimate. It wasn't complete. Some shadows still clung to his businesses, but he was trying, for her, for them. "Your grandmother would be proud," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. Nadine had passed peacefully 2 years ago, long enough to see them married and happy. Her last words to Rain had been, "You found love in the strangest place, baby girl, but then again, the best things in life are never where you expect them." "I think Marcus would be too," Rain said softly, "once he got over the whole mafia boss thing. I like to think I've evolved into reformed mafia boss with artistic wife and alarming number of gallery openings to attend." Rain laughed, turning in his arms. "Is that your official title now?" "It's better than the dragon, though I notice you still paint me that way sometimes." He nodded toward a canvas near the window, a dragon wrapped protectively around a phoenix, both creatures ablaze with color. "Because that's who you are, who we are." She touched his face, still struck by how this man, powerful, dangerous, and utterly devoted, had become her entire world. "My dragon, my impossible love, and you're mine." His eyes, those dark, devastating eyes that had first captured her attention with their coldness and now held only warmth when they looked at her, softened. "My artist, my conscience, my everything." The gallery crowd swirled around them, but in that moment, they existed in their own bubble. Two people who'd found each other through tragedy, who'd transformed revenge into redemption, who'd proved that love could survive impossible odds. "Come on," Rain said, taking his hand. "We have guests to entertain, paintings to sell, a life to live." "Together," Jae-won said, lacing his fingers through hers. "Together," she agreed. And as they walked back into the crowd, Rain Montgomery, survivor, artist, wife of the reformed dragon, smiled, because her story wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about the poor girl and the powerful man, or the tragic past that brought them together. It was about choice, about two people who saw each other's darkness and decided to be each other's light instead, about a love that shattered worlds and rebuilt them into something better, about the moment when art met life, when justice met mercy, and when a woman who came to destroy a man ended up saving them both. That was the story she'd paint next. The truth behind the fairy tale. The complicated, messy, beautiful reality of loving someone impossible. And this time, she knew exactly how the story ended. Happily, together, forever. The end.